Navigating regulatory compliance can feel like moving through a jungle, complex, dense and constantly changing. But today there's a new guide, AI, helping companies to go with the data flow. Joining us are our two pioneers and explorers, Prachi Joshi from Huntsman and Habin Park from Chemtopia. Welcome.
Hello.
If compliance is a jungle, where does AI help most? Identifying the challenges or guiding the route?
I think it can help with both. But the most important value that AI currently has is into three aspects. One, scanning the horizon. Then predicting what actually matters in the compliance review. And the third is highlighting the risks. Because what is happening with regulatory is it is rapidly changing. We are having a lot of new regulations coming in. And I think AI can help in both these parts.
Thank you. Habin?
I think I share the same opinion with her, because the identifying the issues seems slightly more stronger than suggesting the how to compliant, because the AI is very sensitive to the whether the criteria is clearly suggested or not on its functions. So the suggesting the how to respond to the compliance is requiring many decision-making points by humans or experts, and then case-specific documents such as the scientific rationales, then it is really difficult to suggest the clear criteria. So I think it's slightly stronger to suggesting the identifying the issue seems better in AI now.
Okay. Prachi, you already mentioned AI can be very useful for tracking and scanning regulations. In a complex regulatory landscape, how does AI help companies make better decisions and not just faster ones?
So I think the value of AI is not only just giving clear one answer quickly, but it can give experts to review more sources and save the times with the repetitive works, and make relationship with the enormous number of informations and find patterns and gaps. So in conclusion, that it can help the same person, expert, to derive the better conclusions and make decision making better. That's, I think.
Yeah, so it's both about quality and efficiency.
Correct. I concur with what he's saying. I mean, speed, yes, it is important. However, if you want to have better decision making, then there are multiple factors to it. Say, for example, if a new substance is added on the watch list, and currently what we have with the limited experience or what we do as a individual is we will look at what is the impact of the substance on the product itself. With AI, it will also help us reach to a different level, wherein scanning information on not only the product but the market limitations, the supply chain analysis, all those factors are also getting considered, and that is where people can make better decisions on implementing these changes to their products.
Okay, let's continue there when you say the supply chain. So let's follow the data flow. How can AI connect upstream and downstream actors across the value chain to exchange data?
Okay. Consider that upstreams and downstream actors are having pieces of same map. Okay, it's all fragmented. At this point in time in a company, information sits in silos in various different platforms, in supplier documents, in questionnaires, in SDS format. Any supplier can give you documents in their format. So it's kind of fragmented. what AI helps in data flow is that it binds everything together, right from suppliers' information to production analysis, performance of the product, quality of the product, and then the market value of the product, even the supply chain, till the end of the supply chain.
Okay, hey, building on the value chain, where do you see, Prachi, the opportunities to integrate AI in new product introduction platforms?
I would think it is way upstream. It helps a lot in way upstream, where you are developing new product or innovation. What happens is AI can support in analyzing the components. It can give you predictive analysis based on the hazard of the product, the performance of the product, and the market reach for that product. So I think it way early in the value stream, way early in the NPI upstream, it is very helpful. It will also help in breaking the cycle where we have always had regulatory team coming at the end of the innovation. So now it is a tool with the chemist itself that they can go and check all these parameters.
Does that mean that you can already flag compliance risk at the design stage?
Possibly, yes. That's how I would recommend.
Okay. Habin, in Korean mythology, the Gumiho, the nine-tailed fox, has supernatural abilities. What superpower does AI bring to hazard prediction and risk assessment?
I think it's quite duplicated answer that previously I already made, that the AI allows experts or people to get into the enormous informations and data sets and relation them and find out the patterns and the gaps and find out inconsistency to be corrected. And so so I heard that already EPA is trying many trials with the HTS approaches, and then many species of gene cell species to be tested and many toxicological information. So in that way, AI is very well fit on such analysis of the huge data sets, and then make it to be analyzed and organized and efficiently.
Is that then mainly about pattern recognition, or is it truly predictive insights that are also provided?
I think beginning is the pattern recognition, but our goal is going to the true prediction of the hazard or the risk informations later. Because I think AI at the moment itself cannot stand alone to make predictions, but there are already many trials that support existing QSAR or any computational prediction approaches, and then AI can combine those traditional approaches and the data sets, and then make it another development to the next stages. And future, yes, I think it will arrive at the stage that the AI itself make own prediction to it. But the problem is how to defend it for someone who challenges and questions on the reliabilities and the approaches, methodologies, how AI predicted the values.
Do you think that AI could potentially enhance or even replace traditional OECD testing approaches?
I think AI can reduce the test itself, and then helps test strategy where the approach is validated and accepted by regulators. But still, those development of the models, validations, it cannot stand alone as a predicted value itself, as already mentioned, that it has to be validated based on the actual experimental data. And in specific cases, there are many trials and studies in Korea that skin sensitizations and genotoxicity and the reprotoxicities. Some specific cases, it gives quite a reliable result compared to the actual experimental data, but still other items in study guidelines, still yet the prediction is not reached to the quite acceptable reliability levels. So I think it needs more studies for that.
Okay, Prachi, what are your thoughts on this?
I definitely agree with this. I mean, it cannot replace the traditional testing methods. However, it can only help enhance the testing strategies. It can already predict if the traditional testing strategy will give you the correct classification at the end. So it's a good predicting tool, but the traditional methods are still valid today. I'm not saying that it may not be valid tomorrow. So we'll have to wait and see how it happens.
Everything goes very fast.
Yes.
Hey, there is also a strong need for substitution. Can AI help identify safer alternatives based on both hazard characteristics and performance requirements?
Yes, absolutely. I think AI can support in decision-making process for safe alternatives. Say, for example, if one of the hazard is reduced for the substituted raw material in your product, it is not just the substitution of the raw material, but it is how it is going to impact the market, how it is going to impact the customer, how it is going to impact the product in which the customer is going to use that material. And it is also going to impact the sustainability at the end. So actually AI can help you not just map the substitution, but till the end of the product line, you can have the predictive analysis. So it definitely helps.
Okay, you want to add something there?
Yes, I totally agree with the opinion that it's quite sounds like well fitting on the EU's product by design, and then the alternative substance list, of course, its functions and cost, economy, and application is in the field of the actual export on that industry. But after they suggest the candidate substance list and then narrowing it down in the perspective of hazard, risk sustainability, in that field, the AI can give very quick and efficient work development.
Following the flow only works if the water is clear, but how big is the issue of poor or inconsistent data?
Okay, if AI is a jungle, then poor data is a fog, I would say. I mean, if you have weak data, poor data, unreliable data, then the predictive analysis that we are considering and what we talked about in testing strategy and everything, I think it will give hallucinating results. It will create drifts, and that is not good for anyone. So I think data is completely and extremely important in understanding. It has to have the structured, complete, clean data for any predictions to be made.
And do you think that AI can compensate for weak data, or?
Okay, weak data, so AI can actually structure the data if you give the correct instructions. Incomplete data is a problem. So you have to find where it is coming, how it is entered, and it has to be made clean before AI makes decision. If weak data is considered as reliable, then we have a problem with the predictions and the output.
Okay, so Habin, also in the AI era, it's still garbage in is garbage out.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually. So just her answer is so perfect. Let me add just one sentence is that that's why it is so important that the data to be trained to the AI model must be pre-treated and well structured and then filtered all the unhealthy informations from there, so that the AI, even without that, the even good AI model gives unreliable results, as she mentioned, the hallucinations or so. So it is difficult to build up, and important to how to build the healthy, clean training data sets.
Okay. If we look at the maturity of AI today, are we talking about a GPS or are we still working with a map and compass?
I think we are ahead of map and compass today, but we are not GPS as yet, I believe. I would maybe in between. It's a traffic updating tool, maybe. It will predict what is ahead, but you are a driver and you should know where to move. It can only give you the idea of possibilities that certain regulations are coming in, certain substance lists are there, so it can only predict.
Okay, and your view?
I would like to split my view a little bit on what kind of works to be applied to the AI. So Chemtopia also tries many AI applications, and then, for example, the bunch of SDS input by using the AI and make it established inventory in a regulatory perspective. That kind works well, actually. So because it gives clear criteria, as I mentioned first. But for example, there is a specific substance and products, and getting decision making on the global, many countries' regulatory compliance and how to do it, it still needs decision making by the experts and interpretations. So the former one, I think it's quite close to the GPS. The latter one, we are still a little close to the map and compass yet.
Okay, good to know. There are many varieties. In a jungle, you need to trust your guide. How do we build trust in AI-driven compliance systems? And ultimately, who is accountable if the AI leads you in the wrong direction?
Okay. Trust is built with transparency, I believe. The AI data which is generated has to be reliable, it can be challenged, and it needs to be defendable. So with these parameters in question, that means human interaction is equally important. So there is AI and HI. Both intelligence should be coming together to answer this question.
So human intelligence is also important.
Absolutely important.
Yeah, or Habin intelligence, also HI.
Okay, so I think it's quite similar context. The trust comes from the traceability, transparency, and indicating the limitations and the auditability, and those have to come first when AI gives a result, and those is accepted by the regulators. But still, in this frameworks, the full responsibility cannot transfer to the AI model itself, as we already pointed out many times that there are many points that the human or experts has to make decision making, and maybe if later we get full defensible explanations that AI can provide everything that maybe I can imagine it, but it's not yet come to.
By then we can all take a nice jungle tour, more holidays, much better. But we conclude, humans remain firmly in the loop. How can regulators themselves benefit from AI? Do you see them starting to go with the data flow as well?
In the regulators' perspectives, that in global authorities, that substances or the toxicity items, its number to be evaluated is increased and increased, but still we see the lack of evaluators in the regulators, so that they can get pre-screened the enormous information of the substance to be evaluated, including hazard, to find out gaps, inconsistency, and set the priority, and let regulator evaluate difficult cases first. So in that way, that the regulator can develop their evaluation stage more efficiently. And another way is that when the competent authority plans or schedules how to make their regulatory frameworks develop, then they can simulate in many ways with the given information, and AI can also give some schemes to expand their points that the human previously missed part, and then or sample simulations that AI also can give.
Okay, and Prachi, you also think that regulators can benefit from AI?
Yes, absolutely. And I think not just decision making, but also speed, because that is extremely important when we see a lot of testing data or regulatory submissions that you have already put in place. With limited number of regulators to evaluate these requirements, I think they can already put in test parameters saying if the documents are completed or not, if they have the right input in the documents or not. So then they don't have to waste the human effort in analyzing and registrations for the products. So.
Okay. Habin, how are Korean regulators approaching this? Are they already implementing AI-driven approaches?
Korean government already announced the third plans how to manage the chemicals and its accident, and this plan includes the to replace the hazard data through the new approach method, so-called NAM, at the 60% level. So it doesn't just mean AI, but it definitely includes AIs and support it with the traditional, the QSAR and the read across approach or so. And the computational prediction, the Korean ministries already giving public funding and investments to build the data sets to be trained to the new AI models, and it is already published in the public. There are skin models and genotoxicity and reproduction toxicity also. So it's actively working, it's developing, and we are also sorry. We are expecting we're actively participating on it.
Okay. And these Korean data models, are they also accessible for non-Koreans? Or is it mainly a test method that is currently used in Korea?
So it's not actually model itself, but the data sets well established, pre-treated, curated to be trained to the AI model, someone who wants to develop. That's the project already funding, and of course the stage will move on to the AI model developing itself. But I already heard that using those data sets funded by the Korean government, already there are some publications that tried some AI models, train those data sets and get some reliability over 80% or so. So I think there is meaningful data set establishment, and next we're expecting many types of models using those data.
And for companies, the question may no longer be if regulation will use AI, but whether their own data and governance are ready. Prachi, what should companies prioritize now?
There are three aspects that companies should prioritize when dealing with regulators. First, clean, structured, reliable data. That is important. Connecting the systems within company to extract information, so then it is a complete set of information. And third, governance of the output. So whatever you are providing, is it reliable, relatable, audited, and can provide a defense, or do you have a defense for that data that is submitted to the regulators? So I think these are the three things that are important.
Final question. Looking 5 years ahead, does compliance become a smooth river, or will there always be rapids and obstacles?
It will always be rapids, because as you know, we are into a regulatory scope where regulations are changing, evolving every day. And what AI can support is to understand what can be predicted when your data is being done. It needs to have the governance, it needs to have the relatability. It will provide as a navigation tool for the rivers when they curve and bend. So that is what is the AI helping.
Habin?
So it's a little difficult question to me, that it looks like not always rapid or the peaceful flows, but changing is trying to be rapid always, and to the industry, the changing regulatory frameworks are always difficulties. But as EU extended its amendments and their plans, that there is also realistic problems that industry cannot follow on that pace, so that it is quite getting balanced, I think. But what future 5 years and AI can give on this is that it will give faster warning, efficient approach, and well-structured governance, but it doesn't mean that automatic resolves or compliance. So it will be more complicated, difficult, but more scientific, efficient.
Time will tell. Thank you both for your insights. It's a regulatory jungle out there. You can hack your way through it or follow the river. In compliance, AI is becoming that river, guiding companies through a fast-moving stream of data. So, go with the data flow.